Welcome to the depths of the authentic. Hello there, pretty people, humankind. How are you today? Well, listen, I feel terrible. Indeed. I was so sick that I was sure I'm gonna die again. I did not. And I'm trying to make my body, who is very sore, shift and change and heal. And I'm here. Like, if this is not dedication, tell me what is. Yet, I am ready. I am ready for this chapter. Okay, I'm dead. Okay, so today I am here to speak about performance. Whoa. What do I mean when I say performance? Well, everything, everywhere, all the time is performing. How do we know what is performing, what to name it, what to do with it? This is what I'm here for. So you'll have to excuse me if I will have to be more dissociative today. Literally yesterday I was trying to make this video where I got so sick in the middle of the film that and the phone just randomly clocked off. I got to know that it's a sign from the cosmos that I need to stop filming because I'm sick. So we're having this today now, and to speak about performance. So I came to know these terms and meanings from very, very deep interest. Like, ever since I was a child, I loved to dance. I was even studying this professionally during my high school. I was very good, really, but I was also very sick, so eventually sickness took over. But dance and movement is something very inherent for my life, and I feel that it should be more for humankind's life, because dance and movement is healing. Legit, it is healing. And as I shifted my practice from, dance practice, ballet, modern, Gaga, improvisation, if you don't know what Gaga is, just Google it. It's one of the best styles of dance, and it's very, very healing to do it. I love Gaga. But when I was shifting my perspective of stage and choreography and those kind of mediums and spheres into art world, which is, it's in proximity and it's have some tangent points, but it's very, very different and separate, and maybe it's sadly separated. So I was making this movement, understanding what performance means in daily life. So this is part of what I'm gonna do. Wait a minute. What's gonna happen now is that I'm gonna explain what I mean when I say performance, and then I will very, very detailedly gonna touch my reference and the way I created this kind of hybrid mode of reading performances and understanding their implications and meanings. So I'm gonna start. Woo! So when I say performance, I refer to the fact that in contemporary discourse, which is shaped and governed by verbal acts and physical acts and visual acts, they're all transform performance, those tools, into a medium that is natural to communication, to language, to enhance diverse and heterogeneous connections between us, the humankind. We can connect with our images, our verbal acts, our physical acts. This is linguistics. So, secondly, the existence of terms to describe performances already exist. I mean, I do not invent anything here. I just do a vital accommodation of what already exists and what is not necessary in order to maintain more ecological discourses, behaviors, vocal acts, physical acts, performances. So by saying performance, I will mean a specific hybrid mode of integrating certain texts. That means intertexts, Roland Barthes, which I will go at the end of this explanation. But I will start with Ervin Goffman. I will move to Homi, Bhabha, and Sara Ahmed, and then I will finish with Rina Badesh with a small note on Butler, Judit fucking Butler. So this kind of rhizomatic integration of those terms that moves in those texts are an attempt to articulate the modes of representation and aesthetics that each subject in society forms. We are subject in society after all, right? We're individuals and we all form somewhat subjectivehood. And through those thinkers and texts, I'm gonna try to talk about how the modern subject, the modern individual, can be understood through a repetitive performances that internalized, like let's say depressive assimilation, that essentially manifested somewhat self-will agency. Okay, those subjects always in attempt to monetize, materialize within the social fields that they are having, that are saturated with power, expectations, oppressions, and ideologies, and political symbolism and languages. We all observe it because we are witnessing it, as I have explained in the depressive, in the simulation and accommodation video. This is how we learn and develop as subject, as individuals. At the same time, we are organizing structures together. So I'm gonna start with Goffman because his text will reorganize and compartmentalize this kind of thinking. Okay, so let's start with Ervin Goffman, who wrote the presentation of self in daily life. And he suggests that social life requires us to manage appearances, and that our identity is not fixed or essential. It's continuously adapted and constructed through presentations, interactions, and social contexts. Now, his essays offer a portrayal of, like, there is this erosion of authentic within a world of mediated interactions, where each individual crafts a front stage, performing the best fantasy and version of themselves to a certain audiences. And this kind of behavior is called dramaturgical analysis. Now, I'm going to put a pushpin. Goffman essays are very detailed. They're very detailed. There is deep investigation of how these performances, and he also write about the psychiatric and psychic institutions and what kind of performances there is in relation to, or he doesn't do analysis like Foucault on this, but he more so really writes it down and the way it behaves. And it's very interesting to see this dramaturgical analysis, which is the metaphor, the metaphor for what? What is drama? Drama is theater, right? Like, what is theater? It's a stage with curtains. Before the curtains open, you are seated and waiting. You are in a specific position in front of the stage. When the curtains are open, you see the settings. Everything is organized in a specific way, even like the lighting, the actor, the casting, everything has their own space, location, and perspective. Now, this is a metaphor that goes through the theater because the setting is something that each individuals are creating in relation to their social interactions, and it's a metaphor. I'm going to give you one quote. First, there is the setting, involving furniture, decor, physical layout, and other background items, which supply the scenery and stage props for the display of human action played out before, within, or upon it. Which means, like, if you're in an interview, for example, you have these camera groups who come into this home, and you need to show that you have a certain sofa, certain clothes, you need to look polished, you need to have these flowers nearby. Whether we are understanding what we are doing, it's mostly unconscious. We are arranging our settings, okay? Whether it's this home or, even when you go into an interview, you arrange your settings, your earrings, your makeup, everything is in relation to the dramaturgical analysis that the subject is creating once they are preparing for social interaction. So this brings me to another example where, do you know this Vogue interviews where they walk into celebrities' homes? So everything that's on the camera has been going through dramaturgical analysis. Everything. The setting, the flower, the sofa, the colors of the carpet, the books that are on the walls. Everything has been rearranged so that this interaction with the camera and the crew and the celebrity will eventually create the fantasy of the individual, the celebrity, on themselves, on their life. And this kind of performance means that needs to be certain management. I'm going to speak about the front stage and the backstage. Like, individuals perform roles according to social norms and expectations, presenting a polished version of themselves, okay? This is all has to be acceptable in the norms. In contrast, like this is the front stage. In contrast, the backstage is usually the area where they can shed off all those masks and be their selves, be like their disgusting selves. Disgusting, right? Because, you know, who wants to look that messy and everything outside? Right? I mean, I don't mind, because I don't care, because I like to be polished sometimes at home and sometimes outside, because I understand this kind of management. But on daily life, the presentation of daily life, this is how we communicate with each other, with our social circles, no matter how distant they are from us. We are carrying this front stage and backstage all the time. Now, when Goffman wrote this, TikTok was not invented. Instagram was not invented. The internet was not there. So this backstage and front stage are quite different today, because due to marketing and the change of celebrity culture, the backstage has been marketed to the front stage, okay? And now the front stage has more layers. It has multi-layers of front stage that's supposed to represent some backstage aesthetics, okay? Let's say TikTok. You watch 6 seconds, I don't know how much, I don't have a TikTok, but you watch certain seconds. Those 6 seconds are taken from multiple attempts to create these perfect 6 seconds, or rough editing of it, you know? Everything is not as it is, it's all edited. There are multiple attempts to create these perfect 6 seconds. Therefore, the backstage and front stage has completely shifted. It completely changed. Not to mention that, you know, public personas now are selling authenticity through selling backstage aesthetics. While they're keeping secrets on the backstage, they're still keeping this performance of their polished selves, etc. And this brings me to the impression management, which is a very important role once we make a performance in daily life, right? We are interacting with our banker, interacting with our mother, maybe with our son, maybe with our sister, maybe with my partner. People actively manage how they are perceived to each role and by others. You know, it comes with to whom it might concern, you know? Do you know this term? Or after an incredible journey, I am happy to share with you that. Or after a long period of loving journey, I'm so sorry to share with you that we separate our ways, we are in good terms. All those kind of things are attempts to create impression management so we can fit into the acceptable normal. Like, let's say, impression management means that if you're sad, you're not gonna cry, even because you're outside, you're in the street, you're everywhere. Why would you cry? Yeah, you might be going through some violence stuff, but you need to fake it, imagine it's not there, and behave as if all alright, being very PC and all of that. This is impression management. It is all in relation to the acceptable normalcy. aka persistent traumas, but this is something you're gonna have to watch separately. So once you are understanding that impression management is activating like through social interactions, you also understand that in each activation there is a role. Like every individual plays a role in their life, and multiple roles. We wear this hat and then this hat and then this hat. I'm one day the mom, and then in other day I am the sister, in other day I am the CEO, in other day I am the man of the family, in other days I am this bank, in other day I am the boss, in other day I have a boss. I mean, and one day you are a student, at the same time you are an artist, at the same time you have a professor who is above you. Like every role that we are taking in life, it organizes itself within the social interactions that we as subjects set in the setting. Like even with the banker or with our lawyers, like we have to have a certain impression management of the role. Like if you are a mother, you need to behave as a mother, or if you're a dad, you need to behave as a dad, or if you are, I don't know, the boss or the professor in this academia. Every role has impression management, backstage, front stage. Like every role comes with different oppressions, expectations, and behaviors. And maintaining daily life with so many expectations is oppressive. It's depressive. It's like causing like oppressive accommodations that results in depressive assimilation that eventually is normalized because we are all acting in relation to the normal status quo. I have water. I need water. Wow. I'm still sick. I am still sick, but look at me making this role of this so-and-so YouTuber who's just trying to share my philosophy and perspective. But it's not a topic again. Maybe it is, you know? I will try not to internalize that. So where was I? I was in role performances, yes. Once you adhere to this role in role, you have to manifest face-to-face work, right? It means like as a social value when I say face, because each person feels their own perspective while they're making the interaction. And it's very, very important when now it's not necessarily literally face-to-face. It's even not face-to-face. Imagine how hard it is to even hit on people or get a number from someone you liked in the bar, in the street, in the bus. Like talking to humankind in this time changed what face-to-face work and social interactions means, because we have a third body, we have a third space. Remember this term. What is the third space? This camera, the screen, you know, everything about it creates a different modes, especially after COVID, when there was no way to communicate. There was only face-to-face through those screens. Now, this shifted also and displaced some of the qualities of front stage and backstage. Understand what I'm saying? This is all learned, all those kind of things that I'm trying to share with you, the role performance, the face-to-face work, the impression management, all of those are built together to enable one individual to maintain a place within society. And it's important, it's very vital for humankind to have that. There is a great shift within the way we are communicating and interacting or creating impression management within this third space. Like Zoom, yeah, you're without pants and having socks while you're having this very like polished version in this frame. Or when you try to silence and make phone calls with someone else while you're in the like, all of those things are layering what they're like literally thickening what face-to-face work means. And with Instagram and TikTok and internet, like it enabled to create communities that are not in proximity geographically, like to you as a subject, which again, I feel like it's crazy how the humankind is changing by screens, by technology. Our mind is changing. Our performance changes because we made those stuff. It's reciprocal. You know, we create those kind of stuff. We design them. They design us. Okay, our brain. And even like on dating apps, like face to face, yeah, you see their faces in apps. But when you get to real life, you need to deal with the expectations and the results of reality that are rarely what you see in the app or in the photograph or in the video. This is a very interesting topic to discuss and read about when we get into understanding what performance means. So Goffman emphasizes that social interactions are not just exchange but performances, where individuals actively shape their behavior to fit social expectations. This is where the social interactions is a performance, okay? Like, I'm going to talk about if there is, like, I'm going to speak to you through the screen, these social interactions will be 20 times more fantasized and full with expectations in regards to reality. It's all staged. It's all already staged. So the social interactions are a performance. And when Ervin Goffman wrote this, social interactions were literally face to face. So all of those were, even at work, you know, we still have that. We meet our friends at work. We are designed, we are absorbing what's the relationships and the things we are learning that are happening or not happening. It's very important to understand that. And this is how we act appropriately to the sphere. Okay, so once it's in your job, once it's in the supermarket, wherever role you're playing, you're creating this kind of social interactions as a performance. And it extends itself probably in a more persistent trauma way through the staging and the dramaturgical analysis that, you know, are created through the third space, which is screens, which is like where celebrities go in the street for 5 minutes and they are from top to bottom are perfect, but once they get inside and take off their heels, they're like taking a breath from the corset and everything, you know, those kind of things that are still social interactions, but they have displaced and juxtapositioned, I guess. And I'm gonna finish this with team performances, which is basically hypernormalizations, okay? We're gonna have to collect this because like team performance, this, it's not like, yeah, we're a team. It's like individuals who cooperate together in order to stage a single stage, a single routine. It's like the common front. It's the collective front of institutions, of governments, of hospitals, of schools. You know, every individual has a role within those collective fronts, and they adhere to this role in order to maintain social interactions and performance and functionality, which functionality is a very important term that I will have a whole video about it eventually. So once it's a hypernormalization, there are many individuals within the institution or within the whatever, you know, that are performing the roles to maintain this stage. I'm gonna dive in about how, and you should watch my hypernormalization video to understand more what it means, but eventually this kind of layering does not mean that once we remove all the layers we get to the most authentic side of ourselves within, like, no. It means that this specific thing is like onion. We get one layer off, one mask off, one roll off, one performance off, and it's like onion. It makes us cry. It's painful. It's not nice to us. And when we get to the bottom, it's not like we meet our authentic self. No. We meet persistent traumas. And this is where it's like the hardest part. So those performances that we see every day are what has brought our society to the point that we are in. And there is no judgmentality about it. There is only observational perspective about how do we even create those kind of things. I'm going to speak shortly about Judit Butler, because it's literally, you cannot speak about performance without mentioning them, right? Right. Like, of course, she is deeply influenced by Ervin Goffman texts and Michel Foucault, of course. They're actually a very main character, okay, within the critical theory and academic sphere of critical theory. And they were trying to advance like the critical discourse where, like, through their perspective, humankinds do not have a stable interior, rarely agency or essence, and their gender identity is something that constituted through repetition, a performative kind of a performative effect of gender identity that's happening within the regulations of language, which means that through her perspective, language is never neutral. I mean, this is all about the systems of language, discourse, and social recognitions. Now, Butler, through this discourse, they locate gender within compulsory repetition, emphasizing that the restricted agency available to the subject, it only recognized through signs that of performance. Okay, I don't know if you understood this, but they claim that there is not much agency to the subject or to the soul, and we're basically performing gender as something that is taught to us. And I disagree with this in some level. I do not disagree that language is never neutral. That's like, yeah, Foucault, okay, we got that. But we do have agency. I feel like we do have capacity. Like, obviously, Butler is very, very influenced by the rhythmatic philosophies and everything. But there are many problems that I read in her texts. It's not the only problem that there is not an agency through her texts, but the distance that there is between the psyche and our performance is something that needs to be discussed. Like, we cannot say that there is no, like, we have a body, we have a soul, we have a mind. That means that we do have agency, rather whether if language has been not neutral. Like, maybe we are layering it through performance, but it does not remove or reduce our agency. And this is where I feel like I do not disagree also with the fact that Butler's texts are very, very intellectually layered, very abstract and rhizomatic. And of course, they are very aware of the power of knowledge and how it is held by it. Yet, paradoxical, their work is written to adjust only to the academic sphere. And I feel like it's very Freudian, it's very post-Oedipalistic narratives that she's creating, because if you want to create texts that are about humans that are outside of the academic and scholarly circles, why would you create a text that is in the language of the scholarly sphere only? Like, Butler's texts are not accessible, and I feel like it's a decision making to maintain the power held by knowledge, their knowledge. And it's very contradictive, and I feel like this distance creates fragmentation within her performance and her texts, and it generates like this gap of physical, emotional, and psychic situation that needs to be, like, we have to touch it, like, because this is how we rehabilitate and have a healing, like, thing. Because the subject, we're the subject, we're not absence. I don't think we're absence. I think we are oppressing, and we are depressively assimilated many performances. But it does not mean that we're absent or we don't have agency. I mean, it's simultaneously happening, and I feel like this fracture, like, that is in Butler's theory and her practical management of appearances. This illuminates how the ethical gap and hypernormalization is working, because she is still in the academia, she's working in those spheres. And I want to mention that I will speak, once I will share the video about the academia and the art academia, I will speak about the contradictions in her performances, where she was responding to her bestie Avital Ronel in the sexual harassment lawsuit that was happening. And this is another performance of hypernormalization of someone who writes about critical theory. And it's fascinating, but I want to be only a side note, because I don't want to speak more about Butler, to be honest. So I'm gonna move to Homi, Bhabha, and Sara Ahmed. Now, I already spoke about them. Yeah, I have. And I wanted to do that on purpose, because being a Kill and Joy feminist and understanding what it the ambivalency of white, like, colonizing means I really feel like that because it's so dense, like the density of density, I like it. But the density of reading and understanding performance is so thick that I had to separate it. So I'm going to repeat shortly of Sara Ahmed's philosophy and Homi Bhabha philosophy, and I'm going to share with you how they are performing and their relation into reading performances. So Homi Bhabha identifies mimicry as a colonial technique of power, of course, where the oppressed subject is compelled to mirror the colonizer image, aesthetics, behavior, language, in order to have validation in some way. But because there is so much ambivalence in that, it comes in a reproduction that is distorted. And there are many mimesis on mimesis on mimesis, and due to multiple immigrations all over the world, there is large amount of mimicry and the ambivalence of mimicry within oppressed subject or minorities. And within Sara Ahmed's perspective, she shows how ideologies of happiness, joy, success, function, and normality are all contour trajectories of what permitted or not permitted. And this is the path, like, and if you deviate from this path of the norm, of course, you are pathologized as a threat. And this is the risk of eternalizing that you are a threat, because it's hard. And well, thus it means that mimicry of normative image does not produce belonging, but amplifies alienation and depressive affiliation. This is not how we are able to create ecological relationships between us. And this is what I mean when I say we're all connected with other humankinds within certain circles. And once we mimic the normative image within those things, it's not necessarily that we're going to be happy or have safety or whatever. And this is the paradox. And you know, when I say that I want to co-join Homi Bhabha and Sara Ahmed to Goffman's theory, it means to highlight that dominant performances means performances that happens in repetitive and that multiplies and that occur in a dominant way. Like, those are white, successful, and happy modern subjects that are only created, are not, it's not like it's the reality. They're only created through compulsory imitation. It's not like it's unconsciously happening, and those spaces reproduce the conditions of domination. You know, we're in the area of billionaires. We are all hating them. We are all think it's very unnormal to have billionaires. At the same time, the reality still have all the performances and the dominant performance to continue have more and more billionaires. So impression management is just, it's not in this area, it's not a personal act. Mostly it's socially and politically enforced choreography. Okay? And it belongs to the normal, which means we are performing persistent traumas because it is the normal. And performing persistent traumas means that we are passing and projecting and giving to others more persistent traumas. And this is why it's very not ecological, and I would wish this to change. But in order for it to change, we must understand to read performance. We must learn to speak about it, read it, and learn what to say and how to perform ourselves. Woo! Okay. Okay, so I'm going to continue this with Rina Badesh. It's a very Israeli name, huh? So Rina Badesh is a choreographer, dancer, and a critical theory about dance. This is what happens when you throw up and vomit a lot. So Rina Badesh develops this language that it's more of a model and a lexicon. It's called IDT, Icosahedron Dance Theater Theory. In Hebrew, it's one word, Teatron Machol. Okay, in English, and icosahedron, you know how hard was it to learn to say this name? What? Well, never mind. This is the name. I call it IDT. It's somewhat simple. And it's an extension of Laban dance movement. Laban is a originator and profounder of certain techniques and movements within modern dance. And this model conceives of performance as a multi-layered structures that encompasses not only the title of the work, not only the choreographer or the performance, but also the physical body of each performance, the entity of being on stage, the audience, and the space in between the body moves, and off stage, of course. I'm going to give you an example. Okay, first I'm going to add a photograph here of what icosahedron means. Okay, so when I move my hands, okay, each one has lines, nodes, and vectors from that are the capacity of the space of my body. But it's not only my body, it's the relationship. Like I have vectors between my hand and the sofa, or my hand and the camera. I have vectors that change with every movement that I have. If you have seen tracking motions, those are the image itself is very, very similar to tracking motions. I'm gonna search for an image to add here, and if not, just Google it. Those paths are contacts, they are relationships, they are simultaneously happening between us and between me and my body. My body and your body, like if you say we're standing together, we have a relationship within our body. If I will take my hands back, the vector of my hand will get more farther than your body. And if I will take it up, it will change and modifies. And this is how the nodes and points and antipodas are building this kind of threads between us and between objects and between animals and planets, and it all exists within every particle and body, because eventually this is what holds particles. Remember the quantum theory and everything. So I'm gonna move forward, and I'm going to speak about the lexicon that Rina Badesh is bringing. I'm going to bring like this lexicon enables us to see or understand the signification of a certain performance and to name it. And then we are able to speak and name about the performance that we see in more fluent language. About Rina Badesh. This is the book. It's only in Hebrew. The rest of the books that I quoted from are in New York right now, which is a bummer, but this is what it is. So I wanted to mention that this is a very fascinating book because with the lexicon that she wrote, she reads and analyzes a few performance and dance theater shows, such as like Court Use, The Green Table, or Pina Bausch, Coffee Muller, or Sasha Waltz, or Maggie Marin, or even Barak Marshall. It's all fascinating. But this lexicon is not only for dance theater or just performance read. This is what I aim for us to use in order to speak the performances of daily life that we witness and what they speak, what they say, what they mean, all of the above or below or whatever. Let's see. I'm going to bring a few examples. For example, glitch similarity. What is glitch similarity? Is like when there is forms that are obviously related, obviously have similarity, but they are different. And in the part that they are different, it's been exaggerated. So this exaggeration amplifies the similarity. This is why it's glitched. Or for example, the third space, which allows meaning and identity to reformulate, creating possibilities for crossing boundaries or resisting inherent structures, or for example, chained disruption, a diachronic sequence in which one disruption leads to another. When we see one disruption that leads to another, it's a chain. We see a performance of chain disruptions. Those terms are great to use when we name those kind of things. So icosahedron dance theater theory is simultaneously physical, experimental, kinetic, and temporalist, which means it continuously comes into being the present while remaining structured by the memory of what happened, of what already occurred, the movement that was already happening. It's about temporalism. Temporalism is the time between times. Okay? Like, let's say this is my position, okay? This is where you see me, this is where you remember seeing me. I moved fast, but I moved. This is the present. You see me in this position. Temporalism is what you remember of the movement in between. Okay? You remember seeing my hand move. But in the present, I do not move. I stay here. So the time between times is something to notice. This is like, you know why the persistent trauma is so smart? Because it reads between the time between times. And when you try to read a performance, you have to understand what it means that you see something, you have a memory of something that is happening in the time in between. Within this formulation, the position of the viewer is not external or necessarily objective. It's an active part of the performance. Absolutely. Like, if the icosahedron is around the dancers, at the same time it is around the chairs in the stage, it is around the people, and more so it is in the memory of everything they had experienced before and what they will experience after they get out of the auditorium. And it's very interesting because it's not external like the performance. We are all participating in certain role and performances, whether if we are the ones who are in the chair. Okay? It's very important to understand this, because if we are reading ourselves as constant participant, we also can read how the death of the authentic is part of us and also part of others, and how we can see and read it. Okay? Because it performs. It just is. And it's very, very fascinating because this is a pattern that repeats itself within this medium of performance, and even in every distance galaxy of sphere of knowledge. It's still, we are all participating because we are creating reproductions. We are living in this life. We are trying to have, social interactions on some levels. So Badesh emphasizes that the frames of work cannot be confined to what appears on stage. The position of the viewer. The position of the viewer is what I was trying to say, and it's part of the lexicon. Like, when you say the position of the viewer, it means that you understand the roles of yourself, the viewer, or the performer on stage, or the stage itself. And it's folding back into the performance itself, always, like to the interaction itself. This implicates that the transformation that we are as subjects are experiencing and soaking. So it extends and contrasts itself at the same time. I don't know if you understood what I was saying, but bottom line, this thing folds and extends at the same time, and we are all participating in that at the same time, despite different roles and different POVs. I'm gonna conclude this Rina Badesh thing. It's a lexicon. It's our tool, but making the integration real in life is one of the hardest things in the world, to be honest. And I'm gonna finish this with the denying alibi, the flat that, and thoughtlessness. Now, I was speaking about performance, images, and everything. And at the beginning, I was talking about intertextual reference, which comes from Barthes. And I'm going to continue from Roland Barthes' perspective and read on images. So the denying alibi designs the performative response operating across every form of photography or videography. Just every digital testimony. The denying alibi is an alibi of representation and evidence of the post-Oedipalistic narratives and performances. What do I mean? Did you know what I mean? I have made probably a lot of videos about trying to explain what I mean. This is why it's so hard for me, but the denial alibi is this post-Oedipalistic narrative that we share, that we tell, that gives us alibi for the role or the impression management that we want to have. Like, in the age of selfie, TikTok, and immediate like effortless self-editing and body holding the camera and like the body responding to it, you know, or even the fact that humankind, especially queer and humans, have shaped their bodies in relation to this photographic and digital like testimony. Those things activate distinctive performances that together produce the denying alibi. Now, I'm going to give a citation from Ervin Goffman in this case. In such cases, the performer comes to be his own audience. He becomes to be the performer and the observer at the same show. So this denying alibi is the place where at times right now, like when we produce a digital testimony, we are not only the performer that, you know, frame ourselves to be the best polished versions in front of the camera. This relationship between the person who takes photograph, even if it's just on the phone, and ourselves means that we are thinking of how we perceive, therefore we are become the observer of the show of ourselves. The contemporary subject or the individual therefore becomes a photographer, the photographed body, the performer, the observer, the editor, the audience, all at once. All at once. And this image no longer documents only the performance occurring before the camera. Like, it also contains the performance of producing, selecting, editing, altering, coloring, approving, and whatever things need to be done in order to circulate that image. And the denying alibi emerges through the contradiction between photography as evidence and photography as a concealment. The image proclaims that something exists, nachon. I said in Hebrew, right? That there is an alibi, right? You have a photograph of something, it's evidence. At the same time, it is framing the suppressed relationship of power that made the image possible, right? Like, I'm going to quote from Barthes now. All those young photographers who are at work in the world, determined upon the capture of actuality, do not know that they are agents of death. This is the way in which our time assumes death. With the denying alibi of distractedly alive, of which the photographer is in the sense the professional, the paradigm is reduced to a simple click. With a photograph, we enter the flat death. So this quote is bringing this denying alibi and the consequences of it. The flat death is what the image shows eventually. The denying alibi is the mechanisms that are creating this flat death of image. And photography does not merely like reflect life. It obscures the presence of death by presenting life as though it continues to be uninterrupted. And in doing so, it grants the denying alibi, which evades an encounter with finitude. Its very operation of photography is reducing existence to a single dimension, and it's creating this removal normalizes that as something flat, accessible and reproducible, while potentially emptying of its moral and emotional substance. Like, the image appears to preserve life, right? But the denying alibi marks that that must be excluded, edited, in order to allow these appearances. And this is why it's flat that. Like, so many of Instagram photos are the denying alibi. They are the denying alibi because they are the alibi that maintains this performance of success, happiness, good life, blah blah blah. So the flat that is signified and distinguished through certain aesthetics qualities, like it's very decorative, very normal, very pleasant to the eyes. In this sense, there is a lot of discussions and discourses about aesthetics, but aesthetics are a tool, and this tool can be removing, and it can be also destructive because it removes the proximity of our life to what we don't want to see, hear, and understand. This is not like a literal death, because of course there's photography of literal deaths, but this flat death signifies through perpetually begging of validating and displaying evidence that the subject holds elements of wealth, of happiness, of joy, of I don't know what. It's all governed by clean aesthetics, and they remove all signs of body hair, asymmetrical features, thin lips, Victoria's Secrets, that, like, having those body dysmorphia. Only flat death. And the denial alibi is the fact that it's still like the whole relationship of the photography exists and the flat death remains. And it's sad. And this is the visual discourse today. And it all occurs with many impression managements. Like, the visible body is disciplined into those images. And it's dehumanization. It is. What can we do? This is why it's a flat death. And removal, the discomposing, and all the things that are removed from the frame. I cannot speak about understanding photography and the denying alibi without understanding Ariela, Aisha, Azulay, which I was bringing before, not in the depth that I wish because it's a lot. But Ariela, she seeks to expose what photography suppresses in the name of testimony. And it's crucial. The denying alibi may operate in any direction and does not in itself possesses a predetermined moral or political orientation or stand. Not at all. It simply occurs as an interpellative passage, because through Barthes' eyes, photography suppresses, like, it's an emotional and ontological reduction. It's existing of a compressed, flat position. And the shutter for Ariela, Aisha, Azulay itself, it's not only interrupts time, it also frames the social order. It marks what has decided to be removed out of the frame, or even with supposed natural intentions. It all signifies this power, the system of power relations, of photography as an act of testimony. Like, she speaks specifically about artifacts and evidence of oppressions and genocides and, colonialization and imperialism. Like, photography, therefore, like if I'm catching both of them in Ariela Azulay account, where this is not just an aesthetic act, it's not just a documentation of reality, it's simultaneously makes all of those seem to devoid the tragedy of life, to create a post-Oedipalistic evidence. And this is why it's hard to understand this temporalism of the denying alibi and the flat death. Now, I have to co-join Barthes with Ariela, Aisha, Azulay, because it is important if we want to create new versions and more updated versions of histories that are not devoid in the tragedies of reality, or maybe they are capturing the precise that. And it's hard. And this is where I'm going to finish with Hanna Arendt, Thoughtlessness. Like, of course, the banality of evil, which I feel like it's still relevant today. Very, very relevant. I might have a video only about this book, maybe one day. Who knows? But this concept illuminates the mechanisms that provides that it is not misunderstood as a claim of evil itself, like, yeah, evilness, whoa, it's banal. No. It's like Arendt's concern is that it lies with the possibility of devastating violence that is routinized through procedures, through inherent languages, through obedience and the suspension of thought. Suspension of thought, aka thoughtlessness. This thoughtlessness is part of the death of the authentic. You remember when I was speaking about team performances and hypernormalizations, and how each step of Ervin Goffman's and the reading also in Butler and Homi, Bhabha, like the performance that we are creating in our lives. So thoughtlessness, which is part of the death of the authentic, is not lack of intelligence, not at all. It's just the refusal or inability to interrupt the familiar order that is saturated with routinized, violent procedures, aka persistent traumas. Now, if you notice that I was saying in a lot of things persistent trauma, it's because this term holds so many texts, so many. It's so accurate, and it's shockingly accurate. You know, thoughtlessness does not give us a solution for the social problems nor the mental problems, but persistent trauma gives an answer to all of those. Thoughtlessness is in some way enables the banality of evil. And thoughtlessness is just a depressive assimilation. It's internalization of those routinized procedures. And the repeated images do not necessarily like conceal suffering, not at all. Like, as I said, yet through the circulation and the aestheticization and the familiarity, the image detached, it's maybe displaced from the event itself, or what was prior in the backstage to prepare this image, or the aftermath of this image being taken. Like, a body remains visible while it's in pain, become illegible. Like, that is shown, but the viewer is not required to mourn, respond, or think, just as I mentioned before on crying. Like, the flat deadness is very, very in correlation to the thoughtlessness. And the relation to our death, therefore, does not lie in declaring photography evil. Not at all. I'm a photographer also. I love it. All digital testimonies are a tool. But it lies in asking how visual discourse can transform violence into a procedure of POVs, post-apocalyptic narrative, depressive assimilations. Like, I was trying to lay out of this for you because we are all participants in this. Not only me, not only you as the viewer, but all the people around us in between this time. And we must learn that this thoughtlessness comes with the relationship to familiarity, and how it denies us to really be present. And it, like, this kind of familiarity can allow us, like, or you as the spectators, to continue scrolling without interpretation. And this is the problem today. One of many, of course. But how can we pause and be thoughtful about the performances, whether it's role playing, impression management, or team players? All of those are familiar procedures, and they are preventing us or stagnating us and making us continue doom scroll within our life, within our screens. And since I'm talking about the death of the authentic, I want to speak about how not ecological relationship this creates between us, the humankind. I'm wrapping up. You people becoming the image, okay? Like, in accordance to the logic of persistent traumas, of depressive assimilation, the subject, the individuals that we are, may eventually become the image that it has been required to sustain, which means repetition does not merely represent as identity. Like, it reorganizes our bodies, the body, the psyche, the mind, the mental and ethical fields from which the subject, we are as individuals, act. Like, this is what organizes us, this depressive assimilation that comes through performances. The question is not only who performs power, because everyone can perform power, whether you're a queer BIPOC or whether you're a legit white man. Everyone can perform that. So the question that remains that is beneath the performance is whether us as individuals, as participants, as subject with agency, can still read, hear, and understand these relationships and the relationship of power in between them. So I'm going to try to conclude that it was nice, despite the fact that I had to repeat it twice. But I'm letting this go, whatever it is there is, and let's stay tuned about life. I'm gonna come back again and complain.